Okay, so if one of you know why the orientation lock would be on like that, if one of you know that orientation lock, let me know what's going on with that. I'm not sure what was going on, but I am live now, and let's see. Okay, good. I'm sorry for those of you that had to take Dramamine because of the seasickness, and all right. One of these days, I promise, one of these days I am going to start a live stream, and it's going to work exactly the way it's supposed to work. But the phone, it was all set up, and I hit the start button, and all of a sudden a message comes up and says orientation is locked. And why would you ever lock a live stream in a in a wrong direction? So anyway, so if you have any information about that and can help me out with that, let me know. But with all of that being said, welcome to Coffee and Cichlids. So I want to start off by, first of all, welcoming all of you that are here and that went through that little seasickness event with me. And I am doing fine. Thank you so much for asking. And I want to start off very quickly by thanking a couple individuals. Jose Fernandez, if you're around, I know you work around this time, but thank you so much for last week's super chat. And thank you, Duke City Aquariums. Very appreciated, my friend. And Inventory King, who gave me a super chat for a particular purpose. And he wanted me to get a tangerine tiger. And I have some good news for you, Paul. I also want to thank those of you who are tuning in internationally. I know that we had a few folks from Germany. We had some folks from Canada, Nova Scotia, England, Great Britain. And I want to thank those of you who are tuning in internationally. I know the time differences can make it kind of crazy. I hope this time works. This time slot works. As some of you know from the thumbnail that I posted, I had one of my real hard rules when for me as a fish keeper. One of my rules is, and you know this if you've watched my videos, and you know what I went through because I didn't follow this. One of my somebody's from China. Are you kidding me? Hello, China. So at any rate, one of my rules is to quarantine, and I broke those rules a while back, and it cost me very dearly. But I had something occur, and a fish provider that I trust approached me with, let's just say, an offer that I couldn't refuse. And it included 4 of the fish that I was trying to get my hands on. And so I didn't, what could I do? I didn't have any tank to quarantine, but the person had the fish. I've purchased fish from this person before. And so what do? I mean, do you look a gift horse in the mouth? Do you look a gift fish in the mouth? Do you say I can't take them right now? So it kind of put me in an awkward situation, and I decided to go ahead and roll the dice. And so what did I do? I got this nice big box from Live Fish Direct, and in the box were 4 very, very good. Well, they look good. They're about 5 inches, and they're about 5 inches each, and they seem like a good size, but when you put them in here, you really appreciate just how large these fish are, because the 5-inch fish actually look rather small by comparison. Now, fortunately, when the fish arrived, I was working from home that morning, and so I could go ahead and float and do my flop and drop and keep a real good eye on things. They did get the normal welcome that fish get. You know, cichlids, the welcome they get to a tank is they get chased around, they get picked on, and until they find their place in the pecking order, or until the other fish realize this guy isn't a threat, and so I'm just going to leave him alone now. And so I had a little bit of that, and fortunately this tank has some hiding areas. These real tall bushy plants from elite cichlids. These actually provided some good hiding spots, and so there was a little splashing, there was a little chasing, and then it calmed down. Now, when I add new fish, I always leave the lights out, and so that helps to calm things down a little bit, but not so much with cichlids. Cichlids will go ahead and attack even when the lights are on. And hello, the water box. Thank you so much. I'd like to get down there again sometime. I try not to watch the comments. They are distracting, but sometimes you can't help it when you see a color pop up. I love that blue and the orange and all the other colors. So at any rate, I floated the fish. I had the lights out, floated the fish, flopped and dropped them. Was able to spend a few hours observing, watching, making sure that nobody was being killed. But then I had to go to work. And so, you know, I'm at work, and I'm you know, fingers crossed. And when I get home, I asked my wife, who'd gone home a little bit earlier, did you hear a lot of splashing in the tank? Was there a lot of activity? She goes, no, that was pretty calm. And so everything worked out fine. So the problem, of course, is when you get new fish, and if you add them to a tank with fish, because of the travel, even though these fish came FedEx overnight next morning and I grabbed them immediately, with the travel, the fish are already a bit weak. Then they go into an environment where they get stressed by harassment. So if there's anything going on inside of them that they've been able to keep in check because of the strength of their immunity system, of their immune system, it will flare up under that level of stress. So if they have parasites, if they have some sort of low level, maybe some dormant disease, it's going to flare up. And this, of course, is one of the reasons why you quarantine. I trust Live Fish Direct. I've never had an issue with any fish they've sent me. That doesn't mean that I would not quarantine in the future if I had this happen again. So what am I doing as a precautionary step? I have some API General Cure that I picked up from Super Cichlids. Little plug for my friend Lisa at Super Cichlids, who I think is having a grand opening this weekend. And Lisa and her family, they rock, and they have probably one of the most beautiful fish stores I've ever seen, with supplies, massive tanks, gorgeous. Unfortunately, it's in the other corner of the country, otherwise I'd love to go visit. But this is the size of General Cure that you need when you have big tanks. You need to have a couple of these laying around. A couple tubs of GI General Cure, of General Cure, API General Cure. Anyway, so I treated the tank with API General Cure, and I'll do a water change today, and then I'll treat it again. And hopefully that will keep things at, you know, anything that may have come in with the fish, which I don't think anything did, but anything stress related is going to be kept at bay. So what do I have back here? I have a fire hap, a red fire hap. I have a imperial tiger. I have an imperial tiger. I have a red empress, and I have a borlei. a orange. This is the quad. The one with the more orange body is the one that I picked up, and he's beautiful. He is hanging out in these plants, I suspect. And the other fish have taken to them. I don't see any real. I don't see any violence. I don't see them trying to kill them. If they really wanted to kill them, they could have. Just on the sheer weight and mass of some of these fish, like if that torpedo, that large trout, if that large trout was just to speed up and hit a fish on the side, you'd have a swim bladder issue. The fish would probably turn over and would be immobilized and be killed. I've seen fish killed that way, where all they get is a hard hit from another fish that isn't even trying to eat it. It's just trying to take it out. And the fish would just turn over and disappear. And I want to also very quickly, and I missed this step in the beginning, I want to give a shout out to to the folks that help to control and moderate the live streams, and that's of course the queen of live streams from Montana, Candi. Candi, you rock, and I'm glad to see you here today. She's very busy. She works for many different groups, and so sometimes she disappears on us, and any time she can spend here is very appreciated. I also have Kevin Green, my friend Kevin Green. Check out KG Cichlids on YouTube, and also check out Denny's Aquatics, which is Dennis Rudell, and those three are the moderators of this group, and help to keep things rolling and post. I noticed that Candy's been posting links. I appreciate that, Candi. So my moderators are the best. So so that's what I have. I have these 4 fish in here now. Of course, from this angle, you can maybe see some of them swimming by occasionally. But I'm going to go ahead and do a sort of an unboxing video and talk a little bit more about them, and I'll be able to show them to you more close up. I'll tell you something. They came out of the bags. They came out of the bags with blue faces and color in the body, and so I knew right when I pulled them out that I had some good quality fish. When you receive a fish and the face is bright blue, and you're certain that the seller is not juicing the fish, it's not hormones. It's actually just a good quality fish. So. At any rate, that's what I did. I broke my own rule. I'm putting it out there. You know, I could have not talked about this for a few weeks and but what's the point of not sharing what's really going on, right? Someone suggested to run out and pick up a tank real quick I thought about that, but I rolled the dice. So a couple quick things. I want to address a couple of the questions that were asked in the last live stream. And by the way, the t-shirt I'm wearing today, this is my other passion. I like to ride bikes up very steep hills, and not because I enjoy riding them up the hill. That's a lot of work, but I love going down the hill. You can get about up to about 35 miles an hour going down the hill. I'm hardly Lance Ochart. Thank you. The other day I had a young lady go flying by me going up the hill, and it was rather intimidating. All right. And another thing I want to comment is in the last live stream, I talked a little bit about how fish keeping can help people with anxiety and depression and other issues. And I want to thank those of you who commented and actually opened up about the kind of things that you've been able to get some help with fish keeping. Some of you talked about keeping alcoholism in check. Some of you talked about anxiety, depression, and other issues. And thank you so much for opening up about that, guys and gals. and because I read those comments. Sometimes I really don't even know what to say, but they are heartfelt, and I do appreciate you doing that. I do appreciate you opening up about that. It really is something very, very good for people to do. So I want to address a couple very quick questions, and then I want to take up some of your questions. And last week we had Daniel Barrett, and I don't know if Daniel Barrett is in the stream. If he isn't, I'm sure he'll catch this later. But he said, I was thinking about getting 5 2.5-inch fish and keep them in a 20-gallon long for quarantine. I have a small HOB and an air stone. What is the best way to control ammonia and nitrate during that time? Well, Daniel, I think even some people in the live stream commented on that. You just do the usual. You just go ahead and do the usual. You first of all make sure that your tank, that your QT, your quarantine tank is cycled. Make sure that you put some substrate from your established tank. Maybe use a little bit of the sponge in your established filter from the established tank. Use that in the HOB. So make sure that you have good bacteria in that quarantine tank. You can certainly test the water, and then just do the usual. In other words, do your water changes and do the things that you would do to control nitrates in any tank, right? So do your 25 to 50% water change, and on a regular basis, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And there's an old saying: when faced with the unusual, do the usual. Do the usual. Okay. So somebody asked, let me see here, Fishy Biz Aquatics. Fishy Biz Aquatics, are you here? Fishy Biz Aquatics. Okay. Asked best way to add cichlids to an established tank. 12 to 15 fish already. Well, the way I added the fish to this one is, of course, I floated the bags to match temperature for at least 15 to 20 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer, and then I flop and drop. For those of you not familiar with that, I simply put a big net over a bucket. I pour all the water out of the bag because I don't want any of that water, which has the waste, especially if they were shipped, because there's a little bit of extra waste in there. I go ahead and pour that water out through the net. I catch the fish in the net, and I gently put them in the tank. And that's called a flop and drop, and I've been doing it for years without any issues. And I do it with the lights out. I have the lights out, and I usually will leave the lights out, and that way things will stay relatively calm. And then when the lights come on, hopefully the fish look around and go, hey, have you always been here? What's the deal? And of course, in a cichlid tank, they get the cichlid tank welcoming committee, which is usually some hard chases, a few nips, and then things settle down, hopefully, unless some fish is very, very similar to another fish or feels very threatened by that fish. In that case, you're going to have a battle royale. So Fishy Biz Aquatics, I hope that helped. And then Dark Matter 780. Dark Matter 780. I always wonder where people come up with these names. Dark Matter 7, that's a very interesting one. Is it normal for a tank to maintain an 80 to 82 degree temperature without a heater? Ambient room temperature is 78. So here's a tank that's sitting in a room that's 78 degrees, and the tank is at 80, running at about 80 degrees, 82 degrees. So what you have going on there, this is my opinion, and you folks that are watching, go ahead and share what you think. But in my opinion, I think what you have going on is you have probably a canister on there, and it could be the canister or maybe the type of lights. Thank you, Jerry. The type of lights that you have, but usually, you're running that water through that canister, and one of the things you'll notice in a fluval, the fluval has the motor protruding out the bottom side, and so a lot of that heat gets dispersed that way. The Sun has it on top. A lot of canisters have that motor on top. I would probably suspect that the fluval motor has less of an impact on temperature than a Sun motor, just because of the way it's set up. But I would say that your filter is probably heating your water to some degree. So whatever it is you have going on there. And thank you, Matt. I see that, Matt. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And so that's my guess. That's my guess on what's going on there. Anyone else have any ideas? Certainly the lights could be affecting that. I remember when I first got into fish keeping, and this will date me, we had a steel, right? A steel lid, and it was pretty big. And you would buy those long bulbs, and you would screw them in there. And one day I didn't have that bulb, and I put just a regular bulb in there. And first of all, you couldn't touch the lid because it was blazing hot. The steel would get really, really hot. And thank you, Jerry. And you're welcome. Use it in good health, as my mother used to say. So at any rate, and it raised the temperature. It raised the temperature of the tank, that bulb. So I know what you're talking about with the lights. So so those are the questions I wanted to take up from the prior feed, and I wanted to see what you folks have on your mind. What have you got on your mind today, folks? I'm watching the comments come up right now. I'm going to allow myself to break protocol, since this stream is all about breaking protocol. And lights from the Fred Flintstone period. Oh, God. Yeah, I'm pretty old. I am pretty old. You know, John Hudson likes to pick on me because he thought I was a lot younger over at Tank Talk. He likes to pick on how old I am. All right, so let's see. What do you got? Let's hear some questions. Don't forget to set your coffee mug on the like button. Thank you so much. Let me see. Someone got a 4.5-inch sulfur head. Sulfur heads are one of my favorite fish. They're just beautiful. I love fish with a blaze. You know, that mark on the forehead that comes up to the upper lip. I just think it's just a beautiful, just a beautiful thing. And Martel, it's not a mystery. I am 64 years old, and so I think I'm a little older than you are. And yes, I remember under gravel filters and those giant, quiet giant pumps. They're about this big. Anyway, so let me see. Somebody asked, how quickly do I replace water in my tank? I actually run water in the tank rather slowly to prevent the just too much of a shock to the fish. But sometimes I'll run 2 hoses that are coming in on a trickle, and because sometimes you do have a little bit of a pH shift. And I'll tell you, since I started filling up the tank a little bit slower, I stopped getting the flashing and the rubbing and scratching that the fish would do, and sometimes the shimmying that they do after a water change. So I'm not getting that as much since I started moving the water in a little bit slower. And so, hey, Ali, thank you so much. Love that orange. John at KG Tropicals is just jealous. I don't know about that. But you know what, Ali? I was going to put out. I was going to create a little meme that says, "Visit Ben Ochart on YouTube, just like Tank Talk, except with hair." So, you think John would find that funny? I think Lisa would. At any rate. So Fishy Biz Aquatics, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. And You thought that was funny, Kevin? Now I'm blocked from Tank Top. I doubt it. So, okay. So, and good morning to all of you who have said good morning, and hello to all of you who have said hello. So, so at any rate, let's see if there's some other questions there. And go ahead and ask away, because I am, like I said, breaking protocol here. Always looking to get Malawi eyebiter. What's your experience with those? Well, you can see the eyebiter in the tank behind me. Somebody asked about the Malawi eyebiter, and I'll tell you. At first, he was a real jerk. You know, he would chase fish around, get into it with the Fusco, and then what happened is the eyebiter got a slap down from the Venusus, and a pretty good slap down. And so, and for a couple days, the eyebiter was hanging here in the plants. He wasn't coming out much. He didn't look like he was ill or sick or anything. He just looked like he was just trying to be invisible. And so what happened is the Venusus asserted his dominance. He is a benevolent dictator. The Venusus is, and so once he makes it very clear that he's in charge, then he tends to kind of leave everybody alone. So the eyebiter has settled down a little bit. What I have right now is I have a little bit of a struggle for the third position in the tank, and that's going on between the Fusco and the trout. The trout and the Fusco are going at it for the number 3 position. And so it's funny, you can watch the hierarchy. Number 1 is the Venusus, without question. And you can see him there patrolling. And number 2 is the, I believe is the eyebiter because of his recent attack. And then the Fusco comes in third, who sometimes will stand up to the eyebiter. And now the Malawi now the Malawi trout is trying to make his move and trying to move up. The Malawi trout is getting very thick and very long and is a very high quality fish. I picked him up from the Wonder of Cichlids. And just like that Benga Sunshine in the 100 that has that yellow, that rich yellow and that dark face, you can tell when you get quality stock because they really become beefy. They really fill out very well. And that's what's going on with that trout. That trout's going to be a beast. Somebody asked about this substrate. The substrate here is crushed coral from Caribbean Sea. Crushed coral from Caribbean Sea. A word of warning, it does hold detritus, so you need to vacuum more frequently than you would with sand. I use it because I like the fact that it adds calcium and magnesium to the water, some minerals for hardening, and I think it's pretty, and I love watching the fish move it around. And but it's but it does allow detritus to sink in a little bit. So you do have to do your water changes. You're vacuuming a little bit more frequently and a little bit more thoroughly than you do with sand. Sand really, if you have a power head in your tank, positioned correctly, the power head will move detritus into the intake of your filters, and you're not going to have to vacuum it hardly at all. Hardly at all. You will have to rake it every now and then, just to keep it looking nice and pristine, and to maybe be sure you don't get any pockets of gas in the sand. You have to rake it occasionally. I do that with the back end of my glass cleaner. You know, the extension stick. You know, I just kind of rake the sand that way with the black sand that I have in the 100. Somebody asked about my next tank. I would like to get a 300 gallon, and I don't think that I don't think that the floor in this house, which is being leased, I don't think the floor would support it. So I'd probably have to get under there and reinforce the floors. But a 300 gallon with a sump system, I think would be awesome. I think would be a very good tank. I'd like to have a very long tank, where some people might have a big show tank that is very high. I like these fish to have a lot of horizontal space. So I'd like to get like an 8-foot or even a 10-foot wide tank with maybe a 22 to 30 inch height, and to give the fish a lot of space to swim back and forth, especially fish like that Malawi trout, which really is like a torpedo. I mean, that guy has gears that he has not been able to get into because this is only 6 feet. Because I've seen him go after food. If you blink, you'll miss the Malawi trout hitting pellets and going. I mean, he is so fast, it's crazy. Okay, your questions are flying by here, so let's see if anybody else has anything they want me to address. And if for those of you who arrived late, the protocol or rule that I broke was that I put fish directly into a tank right from a vendor, and I am treating that tank with API General Cure, and just to make sure as a precaution. Anything else that you think I should be treating the tank with? I know that Aquarium Co-op, Corey has a combination there. Anything else that you think, let me know. Somebody asked about how many cichlids, like in a 55, I think Matthew, you asked that. I started with a 30-gallon cichlid tank, and as you know, you outgrow that in a matter of months. So from the 30, I thought I was making a very big jump, and I went to the 60. And because of the fish I had, the 60 became too small, almost like within months. And then I went to the 100, and then finally to this 150 behind me. So if I had a 55, I'll tell you what I would do with a 55. I would build, and I'm stealing this idea from somebody on YouTube that I saw that I thought was brilliant. What he did is he built rockwork that was stacked. He stacked rockwork, which is a bit of a pain when you have to do a major cleaning, but for this purpose it was great. He stacked the rockwork so that he had caves. He had caves at different levels of caves. So he had like a multi-story condominium going on, and then he put Buna in it, Buna, and those Mabuna would claim those caves, would claim the caves at the different levels, and so he was able to get a lot more bang for the buck, a lot more real estate. Better use of the real estate of the footprint, of the tank, by creating the upward caves and putting in some Mabuna in there. And so I thought that was brilliant. And if I had a tank that size, that's probably what I would do. I'd probably go with that. So let's see if I can pick up some more questions here. Let's see, I'm going to poke you in the eye here and scroll down some of the comments. I'm sorry, I'm poking you in the eye. And let's see here. Someone asked about the hawks. I'll tell you something about a hawk. If you're going to get a hawk, get a, I recommend you buy an adult male, like I did recently from the Cichlid Shack in Arizona. I picked up a very nice male. He's in the 100, and he's going to be transferred here very soon. But why? Because that fish is on the list of fish that takes so long to color up, and so long for you to be able to determine whether or not it's a male or a female. So regarding a hawk, I suggest get a. I'm going to poke you in the eye again. I recommend that you get that you pick up an adult male. Someone asked, is the coral sharp? No, the coral is not sharp. It's been worn out from a lot of being in the ocean, right? So it has very soft edges, very soft edges. So no, it's not sharp at all. There's no razor. There's no, like, I know what you're thinking about. Sometimes when a shell breaks, it can have a razor edge to it, which would be very, very hard on the fish. That's not the case. Yes, it's like coral sand. It's very worn down and soft. And again, I use it to help with water hardening, pH stability, things of that nature. Even though, truth be told, Southern California water is very, very hard. So, so let's, Ultimate Fish Keeping. Hey, buddy, I appreciate you. And I'm going to poke you in the eye again just to show you how much I like you. And how do you like your coffee? Do you like it black? Or someone's asking about my coffee. Okay, let's see here. I like my coffee black with a little bit of sweetener. Thank you for asking. And if you ever have me over, that's how I'll take it. And let's see here. Worst single act of aggression that you've experienced with a fish. Shala Pinella? Shala, am I saying your name right? I tried to put a dragon blood, and this was never on your radar. I didn't promote it. It was so short and so fast and over so quickly that I never really talked about it. But I tried to put a dragon blood in this tank, and he received that hard hit. It was like watching an NFL replay. He received a hard hit from one of the fish. I can't remember which one. And it hit him so hard on the side that he just arched, went into a little bit of a C position, and then turned over. And I think it destroyed his swim bladder. And then he simply just drifted around the tank until he died. And so that's the hardest act of aggression that I've seen in a tank. And it was pretty nasty. One of my favorite fish keepers on YouTube has joined. Hello, Adam C. Adam C. Hello, my friend. Thank you for joining. Thank you for coming in, and I appreciate. Check out his channel, Adam C. He's got some beautiful fish and some wonderful tanks going on, and just one of the good guys on YouTube. And okay, let's see what else is going on here. Some more eye poking. How best to position my power head for cleaning? Let me see. This is John Q. Let's see. How best to position a power head for cleaning sandy substrate. My substrate seems to get moved around a lot. I found good position for the. Well, I'll tell you. I put out a video a while back called "Never Vacuum Again," which was great clickbait, but not really. I don't think it really worked out that way because you still need to vacuum, and but I have right here. I have, you can't see it because it's concealed by these plants, but right there you have a about a 2,000, almost 2,000 gallon per hour power head, and it's a generation 3, and it actually is a very high quality, very quiet. You can't hear it, and what it's doing is it's pushing the detritus this way, because this is where my overflow is up here, and I also have behind that overflow box, you don't see the intake for the Sun 704B, that is behind that overflow box. So I have that concealed back there. But that's where all the intake activity occurs, and so this over here is pushing detritus that way, and it helps, but you still need to vacuum, because especially with a coral substrate like I have here, because detritus will get stuck in there, and you've seen, if you see my videos where I vacuum, this is a really clean tank. I'm on top of the maintenance, and the stuff that gets sucked up is crazy. It's stuff that shows up. So So at any rate, yes, you do need to, you can position, and it does help, but it does actually, it does still require that you do the usual care that you would do in an aquarium. Quick question, Ben, if and when you test your water on your adult tank, what are your normal nitrate levels? In the 100, now this is interesting because it's a good question. On the 100, and let me, and that question is from Adam C. Just to give you credit here for the question. I do test my water. I don't test it quite as often as I used to when the tanks were not as established as they are now. They're very established, and so I don't really see any issues. So I test probably, in all honesty, probably once every 3 weeks, maybe once a month. Sometimes if I'm curious, I might use test strips real quick just to get a quick feel for things. And in the 100, I run between 10 and 30, somewhere in there, 10 to 30. And interestingly enough, on that tank, I just have one FX6 that I allow to run for between 4 and 6 months between cleaning, which is sort of contradicts the idea of the canisters being nitrate factories, which you hear people saying a lot. That's not the case. But I also have on that 100 a large algae scrubber. And that algae scrubber gets thick with dark green algae every week. It takes 7 days for it to get full of dark algae. And it has special lights that have the right band, the right frequency of light to promote algae. The algae consumes nitrates, releases oxygen, consumes CO2, does all kinds of great stuff. The same thing plants would do. If I could keep live plants in a cichlid tank, I'd do that, but I haven't had luck with that. You can refer to my the truth about keeping plants in a cichlid tank. You can refer back to that video. That was a disaster, a $100 experiment that I conducted to save you the trouble. I heard Anubias plants would work with cichlids. No, it's not true. They as soon as the fish put on size, they pick those plants to death. Especially the Protomelis, your VC10s, your Taiwan reefs, your tangerine tigers. They tore those plants to shreds. So at any rate, so the algae scrubber, which I picked up from Santa Monica Filtration. I'll give you a plug, Santa Monica Filtration. I picked it up from them, and I have that running in that 100, and I think that's really impacting the nitrates. In this tank here, and I think because of the size of the fish, my nitrates are closer to 40 parts per million. After a water change, of course, they can go down a bit, but somewhere between 20 and 40 is where this tank runs. And even though I need to test it again, now that I have a small algae scrubber in the sump, smaller than the one on the 100, and I have the Brightwell NO3, the Brightwell NO3 block. If you saw that in one of my prior live streams, I put a block in here from NO3, and that block is supposed to help to control and consume nitrates. So we'll see if that's having any impact here. But that's about where my nitrates run. I've tried different things to try and cut down the urgency of water changes. I haven't found anything that reduces the need for water changes. And of course, water changes do other things like reduce hormone levels, add fresh new minerals to the water. So there's a lot of reasons why you should keep doing your water changes, even if you do have nitrates that are between 10 and 20. Now, that being said, too many people, I think, worry too much about their nitrates And keep in mind that anytime you do anything in a tank, even me sitting here in front of this tank is causing some stress for the fish. So, so you have to figure, okay, is having the tank at 40 to as high as 80 nitrates, 80 parts per million nitrate, is that more dangerous in the long run than me messing around with the tank and constantly doing 80%, 90% water changes and doing all of this kind of, what's better? What's worse? Where's the balance here? So you have to keep those factors in mind. And the truth is, when I've gone on vacation and I've had people take care of my tanks and I haven't done a water change for a few weeks because I just wasn't around, and I'm not going to have somebody who's babysitting my tank attempt a water change, I've come back and the fish are fine. So there is research out there that would indicate that these fish can actually tolerate a lot higher level of nitrates than we think. Now, was that research funded by companies who are running fish farms to justify that why they have these fish crowded with nitrates at 500? I don't know. I always take every research result with a grain of salt, and I like to follow the money on who's funding the research. But I think that we worry too much about nitrates, and our fish are actually a lot hardier than we think. Now, ammonia and nitrite, those don't mess around with. Don't let your ammonia get even slightly up. Don't let your nitrite, if your nitrite is up, it means you've got something going on with your ammonia. It's a chain, right? It's a sequence. So if you notice any trace amounts of ammonia, you need to figure out what's going on. Either you have something dead and rotting in your tank that you haven't found, and I have seen fish that when they're trying to hide, they'll even burrow like under an ornament, and then they die under there. And so now you have this ammonia factory. Or maybe you've been a little bit lax in your routine, your cleaning routine, and your ammonia, the creation of waste has outpaced the amount of beneficial bacteria that you have, and so you have an ammonia spike. Don't mess around with that. Take action immediately, and don't let that get out of control, for sure. I'd agree. You'd start getting around 80 in nitrates, above 80, certainly at 80 and above. I'll do a water change that's maybe 70%, maybe 80% water change, and I'll trickle it back relatively slow, so it'll take a long time to fill up, but it doesn't shock the fish. And I treat the water as I'm adding it. In other words, I have a large container of safe, a flask of safe that I'm adding as I add the water. So I've never, this is Rob Shannon. Hello, Rob. Thank you for being here. I've never been able to keep my nitrates below 40 parts per million consistently, but I've never seen that it's affecting my fish, so I don't stress about it. That's a good point, Shannon. And I, one of my most popular videos, it has like over 300,000 views. One of my original 10 tips video. The final message in that video was that we stress too much, and we worry about pH, we worry about nitrates, and there's one thing about being a responsible fish keeper that's important. To be a responsible fish keeper. Thank you, Adam C. Thank you so much, my friend. It's one thing to be a responsible fish keeper and stay on it. stay on your maintenance, stay on your schedules. And but it's another thing when the hobby starts to slip over into the area of being a stress-producing activity. At that point, I think you've lost your way. If the hobby starts to become stress producing for you, that's just my 2 cents. I think you should get joy and relaxation and pleasure from fish keeping. Doesn't mean that you're never going to have stress, because stress comes with it. You're going to have a disease show up. You're going to have, in the case of cichlid keepers, you're going to have aggression that damages a fish. I still have my Autopharynx tetrastigma in this little tank here on the side. He's actually looking better. The damage to his eyes is receding. The marks on his body are receding. So there's always going to be little points of stress. One of my Placidochromuses in the 100 was scratching himself really hard against one of the zebra rocks in that tank, and he's got a little bit of scale damage on the side. And so I'm keeping an eagle eye on it to make sure there's no infection. I put some API General Cure in the 100. So it's an active, ongoing process that sometimes can be stressful, but if you're moving into the area of constant worry and stress, dial it back a little bit. I know there are some fish keepers that have a large number of tanks and also have a busy life outside of fish keeping. It's not what they do for a living, and they've posted videos where they feel like they're overwhelmed, like they feel like they're too stressed, like they've crossed that line. And these are fish keepers you would know, you would recognize, and they've had to scale it back. I'm very content right now with 4 tanks and one little hospital here on the side, 5 tanks. That's about my level. Otherwise, if I had more, I'd ride my bike less. I probably would not be able to put out YouTube content. And it would have to come from somewhere. It would have to come from family. I love spending time with my family. I have 4 kids, a wife that I'm crazy about after 35 years. So at any rate, I'm not going to take from those areas any more than I'm already taking. Okay, and you get that. And let me see, Francis, message. Okay, let's go back here. My mods are hard at work. Adam C. couldn't agree more. If thoughts of your aquarium stresses you out, it's time to reevaluate either the method of your fish keeping or the amount of fish you keep. True. And we've all had to stop for a moment and do that. I actually went over the line with the purpose of this video, with the title of this video. That kind of took me over the line a little bit. In other words, I received fish that I really, technically, by all best fish keeping standards, I should not have accepted, and because I didn't have the quarantine to put them in. But I trusted the fish keeper. I didn't want to turn down the incredible offer, and so they're in the tank behind me. And for those of you that tuned in late, there's a red empress in there. There's a fire hap, there's a Borlei quad, the one with the orange body, and there's not the tangerine tiger that Paul wanted me to get, but an imperial tiger, which is, it takes on more of that yellow, orange. It's a beautiful fish, and those 4 fish have been added to the tank behind me. Let's see here. Okay, more eye poking to see some of your comments. That's very true. Okay, so obviously a lot of you are using fish keeping for for stress reduction, not for increasing stress. Okay, very, very good. So, hello, Francis. Let me see. Francis says the videos from Adam and Ben have been a great help as I learn this hobby and the fish and community reach to help my stress. Yep. I'll tell you, one of the things I love about fish keeping and participating in both YouTube and also YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook is that we have a great community. Now that doesn't mean that there are not some trolls. There are some trolls out there. They like to jump on and make derogatory remarks or make off color or say things that are mean-spirited, and they're not really helping the hobby. They're actually hurting the hobby. Those trolls, I have zero tolerance and zero patience for them, and usually they get immediately blocked, ejected, and things of that nature. And the mods at the Facebook group do the same thing. That's why the ben.o.cichlid Facebook group is a very calm and safe place for people to go who are brand new. And it's not just for cichlids. Any kind of fish, go there, ask your questions. You have a lot of knowledgeable fish keepers there that will talk with you and communicate with you about fish keeping and help you out with any question you might have. There is no question that is too stupid that somebody will say, well, that's a stupid question. Usually people are very polite and will help you out. That's at the ben.o.cichlid Facebook page. I also participate in Instagram at ben.o.cichlid, and there I'll post different things that like previews and I'll ask questions and polls and things of that nature that people can respond to. So anyway, the fish keeping community, I really enjoy it. I've made some good friends like Candi and Kevin and Dennis and Evan Alexander and John and Lisa and all of you out there, ultimate fish keeping and all you guys. I'm not going to mention all of you, but you've become, I feel, fish friends of mine, and that's been very important. And we find, again, looking at some research, to the degree that you have some social connections that you interact with on a positive fashion, it does good stuff for you, right? Lowers your blood pressure, I believe even adds years to your life. So with that comment, I think we will go ahead and start the wrap-up process. Do any of you have any comments or anything that you, yes, hit that like button, damn it, yeah, and hit that bell. Thank you, Candi. Hit that bell, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Thank you to those of you who do the super chat, and I really appreciate you folks putting $1 in my pole dancing G-string is very. I had somebody said that I had ruined pole dancing for them forever. And I'm sorry for that. So thank you to all of you and for tuning in. Thank you, Candi. Thank you, Kevin. And of course, thank you, Dennis, for the help. And that's all for me. Goodbye to you folks. And I hope to see you this coming Saturday. I'll try to keep this going. If you like it, let me know. And I'll keep it running. Rob, you're welcome, and thank you for the super chat, Rob. And I'll try and keep this Saturday schedule going. There will be some Saturdays where I'll be out of town and can't, but I'll try and keep it going as my friend from Kentucky says, God willing, and the creek don't rise. I will try to keep this going. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. You are appreciated. Sorry about the little glitch in the beginning. I am going to call Mr. YouTube and find out what the heck's going on. All right. Bye-bye for now.